Well, I'm speaking with Dr. Madeline Dowling, and she has gotten her finished all of her postdoctoral work at Clemson. And I don't think that I ever knew that being in plant and environmental sciences lets you also cast people into roles and write scripts and all kinds of things. So tell me how all this has evolved, please.
Thank you, Amanda. So it all goes back to when I first started my master's degree at Clemson. I really didn't expect to do more than a master's degree at that point. I figured I was about done with school. But I really loved plant science, and I loved the people I was working with. And so I went ahead and went on with the PhD, and then ultimately ended up with postdoc. And when I was finishing up my PhD, I was talking to my advisor, Dr. Guido Schnabel, and he was just amazing. He was always coming up with cool new ideas for things. And he was talking about how I love photography and video work. And we came up with this new idea of creating videos and photos that would communicate scientific concepts like disease cycles, understanding how pathogens work and infect, and creating videos and photos about those to help growers and the general public to understand more about these pathogens. And so we got a couple of grants for that work. And then along the way with that, I developed a video about an app that Dr. Schnabel had created along with a team of experts from different land-grant universities. And in that, I got to cast our farm manager, Jeff Hopkins, as the lead role in the commercial/movie about the MyIPM app. And he was amazing. He was so much fun to work with. So along the way, I also was able to work with our horticultural scientist, Dr. Juan Carlos Melgar, who was also amazing and super fun to work with. I worked with his whole team to create a video about his work where they're looking at different peach varieties and how they determine which ones are the biggest and the juiciest and the sweetest and the best. And that work is very important for growers so that they know which peaches are scientifically the best ones to grow before they grow them. And so we were able to make a really fun video about that as well. So it's been a really fun ride, and I really enjoyed my work there with my postdoc.
But then, of course, blueberries are just, who doesn't love blueberries? And your little video on blueberries, my mouth was agape because it was just the most charming thing in the world. And I think our viewers are going to get to watch it now.
Delicious in food, on food, or all by themselves. Blueberries are one of America's favorite fruits for a reason. But how do blueberries get from bush to table? Farm fresh blueberries are picked in the summer, but they wouldn't exist without cold winter days. In fact, blueberry bushes often need over 500 hours of near freezing temperatures to produce fruit. Once this chilling requirement is fulfilled, warm temperatures can activate the plant. Blueberry plants need lots of energy to produce fruit. Sugars stockpiled in stems and roots from the previous season provide the energy the plant needs to open its buds. Some buds will turn into leaves, and some into flowers. Once leaves open, they use photosynthesis to turn sunlight into more sugars and more energy. But blueberry flowers need more than just energy. They need pollen. Pollen contains the information each flower needs to turn into fruit. Wind cannot easily move blueberry pollen between blueberry flowers because their pollen is hidden deep within the flower in tiny yellow sacs. Even honeybees have a hard time pollinating blueberries, often taking multiple trips to pollinate a single flower. Blueberry flowers need special buzz pollination, mostly performed by bumblebees. Bumblebees use their powerful wing muscles to vibrate the pollen-producing flower anthers at up to 24,000 beats per minute and release pollen. The bee then delivers this pollen to all the other flowers it visits. Once the flowers are successfully pollinated, they take about 2 months to ripen into fruit, ready to be picked from the bush and enjoyed at the table.
Well, I just don't know how in the world you managed to have all those things happen with the blueberry. So first of all, how did you get a blueberry to fall off the bunch of blueberries like that? I mean, that's just not going to happen in real life, I wouldn't think.
No, I would have had to wait a really long time to let it drop on its own. So that was actually pretty tricky to do. I was trying to figure out a way to make it drop and then fall into the next scene, but I couldn't figure out, like, I tried shaking the branch, like blueberries are really stuck on there. I tried taping something to the back of the blueberry to see if I could pull it off, but the tape would stick. So ultimately I took a piece of thread and I actually tied it around the top of the blueberry, and then would go behind the camera. I had the camera so I could actually kind of see what I was doing, because I was kind of a one-man show there, and then pulling the blueberry off with thread. And it took a couple of takes to make it work, but then in post-processing, I was able to remove the thread and make it look like it was just dropping from the bush very naturally.
Well, and pollination occurs at such different times of the day and mostly at night a lot. So how were you able to get all that pollen coming out of the flowers?
Well, some of that was based off of something that our farm manager had told me, that if I was having trouble pollinating my blueberries, the time-lapse scenes in the video, you can pollinate blueberry bushes with toothbrushes if you use the high-speed buzzing kind. And so I thought, well, I could probably get some pretty heavy-duty pollen out of these blueberries by buzzing them with a toothbrush. So that's what I ended up doing. It worked like a charm. One of my students helped me with holding the light for me so that I could get the toothbrush and get everything just right at the same time. It was lots of fun.
That is just crazy funny. And then I don't know how did you get a camera up into the flower to show where the pollen was inside the flower?
So with that took a couple tries as well. I was looking around trying to get an idea. Like, I wanted to show the inside of the flower, but when I was trying to go up underneath it, it was just too dark inside and it was hard to get light inside the flower. And I thought of cross sections of flowers. And I thought, well, I could just take some scissors or a scalpel and try to cut around the outside edge. If I take a photo before and I'm really careful and don't move it and take a photo afterwards, then I might be able to get it. And sure enough, it worked really well. So that was very fun to do as well. But it took a couple tries not to mangle the flower too much.
Well, I almost wish that there was some tiny microscopic camera, because it was just the way
would be really cool.
The way it segues. I mean, you just did such a beautiful job with it. It was really fun. And I guess you must have had the blueberries in a greenhouse or something and just kind of blurred the background some. Maybe is that because with time-lapse photography, perhaps?
Yes. So I used a growth room in the greenhouse at Clemson, and we had it set up where I actually had flash bulbs going off every 10 minutes. And the flash bulbs would flash and the camera would take a picture. It was all synced and all plugged in for about, I want to say it was actually in there for 6 months, but I think the longest I had it going at a time was probably about a month for the blueberries actually turning into fruit. So, and the background was actually a poster I printed at Clemson that I pasted behind it. So, yes.
Well, I just think your imagination is wonderful. And then I was thinking, I could kind of understand a time-lapse camera, but the one where you have the blueberries in the field and all of a sudden the grass starts turning green and all that. So, I guess it rained some and there was lightning and thunder and day and night. I don't know.
So with that was probably the trickiest thing I had to do, because I had to come back to the farm probably, it varied by season, but I would come about once a week and take a picture 1 week apart. There was a guy that I saw a video of him doing that for a seasonal time lapse in Norway. And I thought, oh, that would be so cool if I could show the seasons changing with blueberries. So I actually put surveying spikes into the ground where I put my tripod. And I had a special top for the tripod that would stay in exactly the same position. And then every time I went out, I just put it in exactly the same position every time. And then in Photoshop, I matched the photos perfectly because they have like a software that will do that for you within Photoshop. And then blended them all together over time and added the time lapse of one times cloud over the top of it. So that was pretty tricky in post-processing, but I was really excited with how it turned out.
And to think that you saw a video on how to do it from Norway, you really are a photography nut. And it's just wonderful that you can take that and find a way to make science so much more interesting and accessible for people. I really, really am amazed.
I love teaching science. Like I was able to teach a class on photography and video for plant scientists. And even we had some biology students that joined in as well. And they're all grad students. And they had a wonderful time just learning how to use their cell phones to take better photos, because we all have cell phones now and they take pretty good photos. Whether the photo is good or not depends on just knowing a few tips and tricks to make the photo itself good. And it's not as much about the camera as it is about the photo, like the composition or the contrast.
Do you have some tips you can share with us?
Oh, of course. I'd love to. One of the main things is to make sure that whatever your subject is that you're taking a photo of, make sure that you have a subject, first of all. A lot of times when you're taking a photo, you're just so excited about what you're looking at that you forget to focus on something in the picture. But you always want to have something in that picture that stands out so that people know what they're supposed to look at, because our minds kind of do image scanning when we look at pictures. They're like amazing computers and they are looking for something to look at. And if there's nothing to look at, our brains just kind of dismiss the photo as not interesting. But if there is a subject that's really clear, then it makes that photo stand out. So using contrast, like making that subject the largest thing in the picture or making it a different color from the background. And even going back to elementary school is what we learned about, like complementary colors where green and purple have the highest contrast, trying to see if you can get a background behind, say, a purple flower that's green, or green grass that's, you have purple flowers in the background, something like that, or including blur, like where you have a object that's really close to the camera and then something that's further away so that the background is blurred. That also creates some contrast as well. So there's a lot of little things you can do to make the subject stand out and make your photo more interesting.
Yeah, well, I've learned something already. Anything else that you think we should keep in mind?
One thing my students really loved was the impact section of the class. So obviously a picture is a still image. You're not taking a video, but when you add motion into a picture, it adds an extra layer of impact to that picture because people don't typically see motion in a picture. So if you have some kind of action, like say someone's pouring or spraying water on their plants, one of my students actually took a picture of watering his plants in his garden, and just things like that. Just adding that extra layer of action creates interest in the photo as well. So that was one of the things I really enjoyed doing.
I think that you have a real gift for this, and I want you to, even though you have a new job now with the web development company, I want you to get out there and do a little bit more of what you did with some plants and share your new productions with us. Will you do that for me, maybe?
That sounds like a lot of fun. I'd love that.
Okay. Well, Dr. Madeline Dowling, thank you so much. This has just been such a fun thing to watch and to learn about, and you certainly have a creative mind, and I'm glad that you're combining it with actual science. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so grateful to everybody that has supported me along the way, and to the Lord for that. That's just so special that, I can use that and use it to teach other people about the things that I love. So it's very exciting.
you have a real career as a teacher, even if it's not in a classroom.
I hope so. Thank you.